In this video, we want to go through an in-depth walkthrough on the QuickBooks Online integration with AliOps and Ollie Order. First, to go to your integrations, go up to the top right corner, click on your name, and go into Brewery settings while you're in AliOps. Then go over to integrations and hit configure. At this point, you'll connect your QuickBooks Online to AliOps. And all of these green check marks will show up as yellow X's. To go through, this is where you're going to go in and connect each GL account to the appropriate account in AliOps. The first one is a raw materials asset account. This is where all of your grain, hops, miscellaneous, and yeast will be tied to. There is a way to override this in the system and have grains or specific items go to a different GL account. But regardless if you're doing this override, you still need a default account set up here. The next account is the packaging materials asset account. These can also be overridden, but this is going to be your default account for all of your cans, lids, cases, keg collars, anything else that is considered packaging materials. Once you're done connecting each one of these, make sure you press the green X or the yellow X and it'll turn into the green check mark. All of these have to be set as green check marks before you can actually update your settings and save all your GL accounts. The next account is your WIP beer asset account. This is all your work in progress beer. So all the beer sitting in barrels or fermenters. Please make sure that all of these accounts up top are separate and they're not shared between each other. The next account is your finished goods asset account. This is where all of your packaged beer in kegs, cans, and bottles value will live. This account is also important to remember because this is the same account that you will tie to in Ollie Order for your finished goods. The next is a cost of goods sold account. If you're using Ollie Order, this account will not be used very often in AliOps unless you are doing any sales through your bright tanks in the system. The next is a other cost of goods sold account. This account is where all of your additional costs are tied to. In the system, there are two ways to add additional cost. When you're in your finished goods and you look at a packaging run, there's an additional cost section. These are additional costs are all non-inventory items. So a lot of people will add a mobile canning fee, like from Ironheart, in here as an additional cost. The other option is on the batches screen. You're able to add additional costs to a batch. When you click on a batch, you can go into additional cost, and this works the same way. Additional cost added onto the batches screen will affect all the beer in that tank. Additional cost on the finished goods side in the packaging run will only affect that packaging run itself. This GL account is where all of those costs will get tied to. The next is a inventory adjustment account. This is where all of your adjustments will go for end of the month adjustments, which can be found here, or any loss of beer not tied to a transfer or packaging loss. So this would be more loss if something goes wrong and you have to dump an entire tank. The last account to set up is your accounts payable account. This is where all of your purchase orders will go to. Once this is all done, again, please make sure that you click on all of the yellow X's so they're showing green. We also have ties to a common mistakes article that you can bring up before going into everything. Hit update settings and then your QuickBooks account will be set up. Next, we'll want to go in to your Ollie Order account and set up your QuickBooks integration here. Again, go into the top corner where you have your initials or your face, go down into settings, go to integrations, and then go into your QuickBooks Online and hit Configure. In this configuration, you'll also have to connect to your QuickBooks, and you can connect to different QuickBooks depending on how many brands you have. So we already have our Sable fermentation product connected. First is the income account. This can be misleading. It's not an actual GL account. It is a finished goods or product that you need to tie this account to. So this is where all of the value of your beer sold will go to on your invoices in QuickBooks. So here you can see these are all of our products or services that are set up in QuickBooks Online. To find those, go to QuickBooks, go to Sales and Products and Services, and this is where you can create all of those items. We suggest to set them up as a service. So here you can see my finished goods beer. And in this setup, you can go in and tie it to whatever income GL account you want all of your beer to go to. So anytime we sell a beer, it's going to go to our sales of product income GL account within QuickBooks. The next is a government deposit account. This is also set up as a product or service in QuickBooks. This account is mostly needed for customers in Canada. So if you do not need a government deposit, you can set this up to the same product or service that you have on the income account. Payment deposits account. This is a GL account that you have set up in QuickBooks. Again, this is not needed for anyone outside of Canada for the most part. This is where all of your payments will come in if you're actually charging customers via credit card within Ollie Order. The next is a keg deposit account. This is also set up as a product or service. So in QuickBooks, you can see my keg deposits. And then you can also set this up to a GL account. This is also a little misleading in QuickBooks. It says income account, but this can be tied to any type of GL account within QuickBooks. So I have my keg deposits set up as a other current liabilities. It's up to you exactly how you want this set up. But this would be the account that you have all your keg deposits in and keg credits coming back in set up at. The next is your finished goods account. These bottom three accounts will only pop up if you have lots and cogs turned on, which we strongly suggest. So this finished goods account should be the same account that you have set up in AliOps. The next is a cost of goods sold account. This is the opposite of this account. So once you actually put a beer on an invoice and post that invoice, we will reduce your finished goods value, and then it will hit your cost of goods sold account. The next is an inventory adjustment account. This works the same way as it does in AliOps. You can choose to have them tied to the same inventory adjustment or inventory shrinkage account if you prefer, or you can have them separate. So that way you have one inventory shrinkage account that's just tied to your finished goods and one that's tied to work in progress or all your raw materials and packaging materials. The last is the sync non-posted orders. We suggest at first to set these all to no, and then you can change that as you have everything connected. We'll get into this part later in the video. The next is product mapping. So similar to AliOps, you can go in and override this default account that you have set up. So all of your products are tied to this default finished goods beer account, but you can go into product mapping and choose a different product or service to tie this each one of your products to. Some people want to go in and tie this to all your kegs tied to a finished goods beer keg, and then all of bottles and cans tied to a finished good product or can or packaged item. So this allows you to override this income account here, the product or service that you have set up. I mentioned that as well in AliOps. Here we have the default account for raw material assets and packaging material assets. These are the default accounts, but if you go up into the top corner in AliOps, go to ingredients, and then click on an ingredient and hit edit that item, you'll be able to override that account. So you can see here that rice hulls I have set up as grain. It goes to my raw materials grain account as the default. When I go into QuickBooks and go to my GL accounts, you can see that I have it set up as my raw materials, but then I have subsections that all get added up into my main raw materials. So I have grains, hops, miscellaneous, and yeast. And all of those values go up to this raw material account. Instead of having to go in one by one and edit each one, you can also mass click. You can also click off of items if there's some that you don't want to mass edit. And you can go to your bulk actions and hit edit items, and then you can see your QuickBooks asset account. When you do that, you can enter in your raw materials grain and then mass update all of those items. You can do the same for hops, miscellaneous, and yeast. You can also go in and just choose a couple things and edit those items. You're also able to do this override with your packaging materials. You can mass click them all, or I can just click on a couple of my cans, edit those items, and then be able to choose my packaging raw materials that way. The next mapping you can do is your customer mapping. This is all of the accounts that you're selling beer to. Since we have a lot of accounts pre-uploaded into the system in Ollie Order, you can go in here and search for your customers that are in QuickBooks Online and tie the customer name that we have in Ollie into the customer name that you have in Ollie Order. If you are if you start selling to a new customer and it's not created in QuickBooks yet, you can go in, post that order, and we'll automatically create this item for you in Ollie Order. So this is where you can go in and map all your customers. You can also go in and do this in an order. If you go into an order for that customer, there'll be a map customers to QuickBooks. This warning will only show up if you have not mapped the customer yet in QuickBooks. So you can click on it in here and then go in and search for the customer that you have in QuickBooks and tie it together. If you have any questions on any of these setups, please let us know. Now we'll go into the life of the beer and what it's actually doing in QuickBooks. Once you go in and create a purchase order in the system, this will bring in all your raw materials. When a purchase order is sitting in the draft stage, nothing is going to happen in QuickBooks yet. Once you go in and move that draft order into marked as ordered, it will turn into the open stage. And you can see here that there's the two arrows that shows that it's synced with QuickBooks. As long as you have QuickBooks Online, when you do this sync and mark it as ordered, we'll create a purchase order in QuickBooks for you. You need this QuickBooks Online Plus or higher integration to do this because Essentials and lower in QuickBooks does not have purchase orders. Once this is done and it's in the open stage, you can go in, add any shipping, adjust pricing, and then once you mark it as received, it'll go from open to the receive stage, and we will close the purchase order in QuickBooks for you and then turn it into a bill to get paid. You can also go in to your vendors and sync from QuickBooks and be able to see what your current balance is in QuickBooks. And then as you pay your vendors, you'll be able to see this reduced. In here, you can also go in and edit and add your credit limit for that vendor. This credit limit doesn't go up to QuickBooks because that is not a function in that system, but you will be able to check your credit limit in our system. Another important thing with the QuickBooks integration, once you're connected, is to go to your vendors page, which again is up in the top corner, and vendors, and hit sync from QuickBooks. This will upload all of your vendors that are living in QuickBooks into our system. You're going to want to make sure that you have this little I next to the name of your vendor that says synced with QuickBooks for your purchase orders to actually sync up to QuickBooks. Once you do the initial integration with and sync from QuickBooks, you can go in and disable accounts. When you do that, they'll no longer show up and be updated every time you do the sync. Once you receive the purchase order, your raw materials will go into inventory, and then that will increase your GL account for your raw materials, or will go up to any of the other GL accounts that you created. We also have an inventory value report here that you can double check all your numbers from QuickBooks. Once you brew a beer, we'll reduce your raw materials accounts and then increase your whip beer account that you have set up. Once the beer is packaged, we'll reduce your whip beer account, reduce your packaging material account, and then increase your finished goods account. This finished goods account will have all of your kegs and packaged cans or bottles living here. Once you transfer the beer from AliOps to Ollie Order, we do not do anything in QuickBooks. All your finished goods will now just transfer over, and nothing will happen in QuickBooks, which is why it's important to set up your two finished goods GL accounts the same. Once the order is made, it'll go from a draft to an accepted stage. So we have multiple statuses here. At that point, if you have your integration set to no, which will bring that screen back up. Again, go to the top corner, go to settings, go to integrations, and then go to your QuickBooks Online. We'll now go over the two options of when you want your invoices to sync to QuickBooks. So when this sync non-posted orders is set to no, when you move from a draft to an accepted stage, nothing is going to happen yet in QuickBooks. Once you move from a accepted to shipped and delivered, still nothing is going up to QuickBooks. Once you move from the delivered to posted stage, an integration will happen, which on the order, you can go over to integrations, and you'll see two QuickBooks integrations. The first one is your order sent. This will be the actual invoice to your customer created in QuickBooks. The next would be the journal entry sent. This is where we will pull all of your cost of goods from your beer that's sitting on the invoice. So it's important to go in and as you make the invoice, choose the correct lock code because that's going to pull the correct cost of goods from the invoice. So at this time, with this journal entry, we'll reduce your finished goods value, and then we'll have all of that value hit your cost of goods sold account. Once this is done, the integration is complete. If you ever have to go back in and make any edits, you can click Unpost. When you click Unpost, nothing's going to happen in QuickBooks yet. You can go in and do any edits. And then once you hit Post, we'll go and update this invoice in QuickBooks for you. Also, once something is in QuickBooks, you can go in and mark it as paid within QuickBooks. Once that happens, we'll talk back from QuickBooks to Ollie Order, and this unpaid symbol will turn to a paid symbol, so you know that payment was made on that invoice in QuickBooks. The other option of this integration is to mark sync non-posted orders to yes. When you do that, right when it goes from a draft to accepted stage, the initial QuickBooks integration will happen. So this order sent will happen once it's in the accepted stage. The journal entries still will not happen until the order is posted. However, once it's sitting up in QuickBooks in the accepted stage, any edits you do will automatically be updated on the invoice in QuickBooks as well. So if you do any edits from the accepted till when it's actually delivered, we'll keep updating that order in QuickBooks for you. Once it's done and you actually post the order, that's when the second integration will go through and will reduce your finished goods and have it hit your cost of goods sold account. And then also any edits will not go up to QuickBooks. To make any edits, you again would have to go in, click on post, make any edits, and then click post again, and then we will update QuickBooks again. If you have any questions throughout this process, please reach out to us and let us know.